It only took a steep increase in crime, the realization that Europe's jihadi factory is on its own territory, several rapes here and there, a terrorist attack, irrefutable evidence that the moderate community has no problem in hiding terrorists amongst them, and even going into military lockdown, curtailing the freedoms of law-abiding citizens. But after all of this, it may have indeed finally happened. The realization amongst the Belgian political class that after all, diversity and the youths may indeed be the problem. Let's explore. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Freedom Alternative. Interesting things are starting to happen in Europe, and while I'm not particularly excited about the future of Western Europe, and I maintain that it's preferable and even desirable to visit Tirana, Krakow or Kiev if you want actual Europe, rather than visiting Brussels or Berlin, it is exciting to see major history being written and the plebs being able to talk about it here on YouTube. So, Le Monde titles La Belgique durcit les conditions d'accueil des migrants, which translates as Belgium tightens the reception conditions of migrants. So, let's read a couple of paragraphs. The tightening process has undoubtedly been accelerated by the current events and terrorist attacks, which have also questioned the policies that led to the failed integration of some of the youth of foreign origin. The youth of foreign origin, because we all know that there can be any foreign origin. There's multiple gangs of Polish rapists, Chinese bombers, Ukrainian mosques, and Italian terrorists in Belgium. Of course. Anyway, so, the Belgian government has, in any case, adopted in haste and with some discretion tougher provisions for newcomers on March the 30th. They are presented as among the most restrictive in Europe and could enter into force by the end of the year. The text will oblige all foreigners intending to reside for more than 3 months in the kingdom to sign a document indicating its willingness to integrate in exchange for the right to settle. These provisions do not, however, apply to refugees, students, or citizens of the European Union. Asylum seekers will be invited to sign it, but they cannot be forced, because if their request is accepted, they cannot be returned to their country of origin. The statement, prepared by the Secretary of State for Immigration, Theo Franken, a member of the Neo-Flemish Alliance, led by Bart de Wever, builds on the work of the jurist and philosopher Etienne Vermeersch, which translated into concrete expectations of values, norms, rights, and duties in Western society. The text questions includes foreigners who claim the right to settle on their possible sympathy for terrorist organizations. The broader goal is summarized by the editor of the daily Die Standard, which stresses that, quote, many things have gone wrong in 5 decades of migration, end quote. There have been lacks in the fight against unacceptable behavior, but also a blindness on the mechanisms of exclusion, writes Bart Sturterwagen. The new provisions will apply to nearly 80% of newcomers, particularly those wishing to benefit from family reunification. They also concern those who will ask for an extension of their residence permit. The Immigration Office will check their knowledge of at least one of the national languages, whether they have followed an integration program or not, or whether they are under training or they have a job, and many other aspects. Their possible criminal record will also be considered. Okay, so skipping a bit. The coupling between residence and desire for integration was, for many years, a claim for the N-VA. The Francophone parties, including the reform movement of Prime Minister Charles Michel, opposed it with more or less vigorousness, the same holding true with the Flemish Christian Democrats. In 2010, the federal government had already revised the laws on family reunification and the acquisition of nationality, while Flanders, recently imitated by Wallonia, put in place a mandatory integration course. Now, the way this piece of news is worded essentially sugarcoats the policy. I mean, yes, they can't force them to sign the contract, but not signing and abiding by it leaves the migration authorities the discretion to deny the extension of the residence permit or refuse to issue one to begin with. which is basically integrate or get the hell out of here. It's not a particularly bad policy, though I think it doesn't go far enough, and the end of 2016 as a term for entering into effect is still too late. Tomorrow would be a superior alternative, I would argue. Just like I would also argue that the policy in place in my country is even better than that. This January we had a Jordanian dude who's been here since 1991. Fully integrated it would seem, but around 2014 he started sucking jihadi dick and promoting Daesh. So, upon gathering enough evidence, he was swiftly arrested in December 2015, and by January the 10th this year he was already back to Jordan. His business was liquidated and his ass declared undesirable in this country. That's how you actually curb the problem. Rather than expecting every other year when he comes to renew his permits and only then check how the integration process works. But hey, what do I know? The Belgian authorities also persuaded the EU that the police in here are a bunch of racists for daring to use brute force to prevent the creation of a Bucharest version of Molenbeek back in 2001. Thank goodness nobody fell for that in here, and the reaction here was more or less along the lines of, the Belgians should take lessons from us, not the other way around. See ya in 15 years. Well, 15 years have passed since then, and still no relevant crime-ridden ghetto has emerged here, while Brussels has forged the largest jihadi incubator in Europe. And as Bad Pop would say, winning? No. But anyway, let's hope this policy will go through, and especially that the civil service will be willing to actually enforce it, because otherwise it's just words on paper. This is why I always look at the de facto situation in every situation rather than the de jure situation of any country, because the de facto situation is what actually matters. My country, for instance, doesn't have extensive rules and regulations about this whole thing, but in practice, the kebab agitators are duly deported without much of a fuss. And that is what matters. So, good luck Belgium, because there's a lot of cleaning up to do. And with that being said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you around on Freedom Alternative.